Over the past 5 years, I've built this studio from scratch. Every piece of gear an important part of my story as a musician and producer. But if I had to start all over again tomorrow, I'd do it very differently this time. Unless you've got a huge budget, you don't go from nothing to pro-level gear overnight. And even if you have the budget, you need to pick the right gear that's going to have the biggest impact. But all of this gear is only helpful if I'm actually able to use it. And the reality of that is this thing drives all of it. So this is my MacBook Pro. I used to be a Windows user, built a custom PC that used to do all of my music production, and then switched to this about 2 years ago. Having a MacBook that can kind of handle everything on the go is really, really useful. I can take this traveling with me, I can take it to a cafe, I can take it anywhere I need to go. I took this with me when I went to Colombia for 3 months and was able to do all of my music production work. And this just plugs into a dock underneath my desk. So when I am in the studio, I can just plug this in and I have my whole desk with all of my gear, my dual monitor setup and the speakers. The next most important part of my setup actually lives down here. These are my Audeze LCDX headphones. And these things are definitely the next thing that I would absolutely need. The extra clarity and detail that you get from a really good set of headphones really is a game changer. I use these for all of my precision mixing and mastering, and they just help me to be able to hear every single detail of the song that I'm working on. The bass sounds amazing. They have a really good stereo image. So those headphones are a big part of my workflow. There's one other thing that I'd consider an absolute must-have, an audio interface. So this audio interface is the Roland Quad Capture. This audio interface I've actually had for probably about 10 years now. A laptop, good headphones, and an audio interface. That for me would be enough to be able to keep making music. Now this is what I would consider the main part of my whole workflow and my whole studio. This is my custom built studio desk. This whole desk has been purposely designed to fit exactly my workflow and the gear that I use in my workflow while keeping everything in reach and right in front of me. This is a customized FlexiSpot E7 standing desk, so I can press a button and move the whole thing up and down. The entire thing's automated. I've set it up with different settings for my standing height and my sitting height, so I can just hit a button and it will move up and down to the right height instantly. This second tier does two things. It's a stand for the monitors, but also works as a speaker shelf so that I've got the speakers at exactly the right height and the right distance. This shelf basically extends the width of the desk further back so I can have the speakers that far back. And then I have these spaces underneath. This one's for my MacBook. Over on this side, this is for my audio interfaces. And these slots are actually measured to the size so that they can fit 19-inch rack gear, which is an upgrade that I'm planning on doing in the future. So the current speaker placement is measured to be at the perfect angle and the perfect distance from me. I have the speakers sitting on isoacoustics isolation pads, which just further reduces any reverberation between the speaker and the desk. And then these two monitors, I use these in Cubase in a very specific way. This bottom monitor is designed to work as my mix console. This fader port has all of my faders for my channels, and then I can actually see further details about the channels with the mix console window on the bottom. This will basically show me my sends, the plugins that I have in there, any extra details that I'm not getting just from the faders. These faders are just to actually control what's on this screen. And then my top window is my project window. That's where all the work happens. The cool thing about this is whenever I open up any MIDI clips or audio clips or anything that I need to edit, it opens in the bottom window, which means that I always have an overview of what's happening in my project while working on different parts or looking for new sounds or messing with samples or anything like that. And then I have two full screens for moving plugins and software synthesizers and all that around the screen. So gives me a really good overview of what's happening in the project. The other thing I've added to this desk is this keyboard tray. So this is where my MIDI keyboard lives, and having it down here just means that I always have access to a MIDI keyboard for just getting ideas down as quick as possible, which is really useful. And then whenever I'm not using it, I can just slide it straight back under. This Faderport 16, I've actually customized it with a custom MIDI remote script. I also did a video on that if you guys want to check that out on my channel. I basically used AI to create some custom code so that I could extend this to not only control the faders in my mix console, but I have a mode that I can switch to where I can use these faders to actually control the software completely. I can use faders to zoom in and out. I can change the horizontal or vertical zoom. I have faders that are set to actually scroll through different tempos and quantize values. I can adjust fade in and fade out of tracks. And one of the faders is even set up to actually shift left and right any event that I grab. So I can grab a part and move it around with the faders. Basically, I can control all of Cubase without even needing to touch the mouse. I'm crazy about tactility and being able to feel what I'm doing with music. So a lot of this setup, it kind of comes from the philosophy of wanting to do less with the mouse and wanting to actually do more with actual hands-on faders and knobs where I can feel the changes I'm making a lot more. So the other thing that's really important for me as a DJ and producer, I need to be able to practice DJing. So this is my new DJ workstation. FlexiSpot sent this to me. It's the E7 Pro, the same model I actually modified for my main studio desk up front. Setup was super straightforward. It only took about half an hour, and once it's together, it feels ridiculously solid. I've got my Pioneer DDJ 1000 decks on this one, which aren't exactly light, and it handles them easily. The frame can hold up to 440 pounds, so it's perfect for a DJ setup like this. My main desk, which is also an E7 Pro, carries all my studio gear, plus an extra tier I built on top. And that's only possible because the bass is that strong and stable. It's got a huge height range, 25 to just over 50 inches, so I can raise it up to stand and mix, then drop it back down to sit and produce. And it has two motors, one for each leg, so that dual motor lift is really smooth and quiet, which is perfect for when I'm recording or tracking nearby. And the awesome thing about this is FlexiSpot actually backs it with a 15-year warranty and a 30-day risk-free return, which says a lot about how confident they are in the build. Between this new DJ desk and my main setup, these two E7 Pros have basically become the backbone of this whole studio. I'm probably going to move this one out into the living room eventually just to give myself more space in here. But for now, I'm having loads of fun just being able to mix on this in the studio. So along with this fader port, I also use the Steinberg CC1-1. This thing is very similar to the console one from Softube, and there's a few others out there now. But basically it has a single motorized fader. It has these channel select buttons to move up and down between the channels. It has this really cool AI knob, which basically lets me control anything that the mouse is hovering over. Instead of having to click and drag, I can use an actual knob to change whatever the mouse is pointing at. But then I also have this row of knobs. This controls the channel EQ in Cubase. So I can bring the edit window up, and these are a fully hands-on way to control all 4 EQ bands of the built-in channel EQ. I've recently upgraded to an RME ADI2 Pro. It's not an audio interface, but this drives my headphones and speakers now. It basically takes the digital audio signal from my laptop, converts it into analog for the speakers and headphones. It gives the clarity and detail that you just can't get from a cheaper interface. Even with my speakers, I've been able to notice a huge difference in the detail that I get from them, but it's really noticeable when I use those to drive the LCDX headphones. So this combination together, the ADI2 Pro and the Audeze LCDX headphones, that's what enables me to be able to get the precision that I need to be able to put out high quality music. It has a bunch of really cool features, but my favorite ones are the onboard EQ, one for the speakers and one for my headphones. They both have custom EQ profiles that I've set up so that switching between the two is less jarring, but also gives me more of a flat, even mix throughout the whole spectrum. The other thing that's really cool is the headphone crossfeed function. Basically, without going into too much detail, it allows headphones to emulate the way that actual speakers interact with our ears in a real space. So it gives me more of an idea what the mix would sound like through speakers instead of the super wide stereo effect that you get from just mixing on headphones. And talking about speakers, something that's really important if you do want to be using speakers in a studio is acoustic treatment. I wouldn't even just say important, I would say it's absolutely necessary. So all of these panels around me I built myself. I've got a video up on my YouTube channel if you want to see exactly how I built these panels. They're designed with a couple of goals in mind. So firstly, they needed to be lightweight. I'm in a rental, so I wanted to create panels that were really easy to put up and take down. So all of these panels are super lightweight and they're actually just held onto the wall using sticky hooks. So the only possible risk is if the sticky hook pulls any of the paint off, but I haven't had that problem yet, so we're all good. And in the back here, I've got the two bass traps. This up above me, this stops the whole thing from falling over, but also doubles up as a mount for this ceiling cloud here. The coverings for all these panels is a fabric called muslin, so I'm actually about to do another upgrade on all of my acoustics where I'm going to be replacing them with some fabric from the creators of a very famous acoustic fabric. And I'm going to be doing a test to actually measure the frequency response between this fabric and the new fabric and see how much of a difference it makes. I have a video up on my channel of how I actually built these panels. If you want to check that out, you can head over to my channel and see it for yourself. And so the speakers I'm using, these are the Yamaha HS8 speakers. These speakers are awesome and they're also really budget friendly. I use these along with the HS8S subwoofer. Whenever I'm starting a new song, I started on the speakers. I prefer using these over headphones to get started, just for a few reasons. Firstly, I don't have to be wearing something on my head. And secondly, I like the stereo spaciousness that you get from speakers over headphones. I always start with these just to kind of get a vibe and feeling for the song. So whenever I'm coming up with ideas and just in the songwriting process, I'm always doing it on speakers first. I also have a subwoofer connected, which for a small studio like this is not super practical for precision, but it does help me to get a feeling of what the bass is going to feel like. And that's the main reason why I use it. When I need to actually dial in the bass and get everything in the low end sounding right, I switch over to my headphones for that. Another thing that I have here underneath the desk is the Pod HD. This is an effect pedal from line 6, which I use along with my guitar. And basically this thing can emulate a whole bunch of different signal chains. And speaking of my guitar, this is what I'm currently using. So this is an ESP LTD MH417. It has a satin black finish and it's a through body design. Really nice looking guitar. This is a 7-string. I used to play a lot of heavy metal music. That's kind of where I started from. So that's why I got the 7-string. But the 7-string also works really well for all the electronic music that I'm now working on because it just gives me that extra low bass extension, which is really important for music that's made for a dance floor. So I use this in all kinds of ways. Sometimes I put a whole lot of different effects on it. A lot of the time in my music, you won't even be able to tell that it's a guitar that's being played. Sometimes I put it through all kinds of processing and effects. Sometimes I resample it. But it's also really good for creating some really good gritty bass sounds. So of course, the other two things I have is my keyboard and trackball mouse. I use a trackball mouse instead of a normal mouse because of two things. Firstly, ergonomics. It's actually much better for your wrists and your arms, and especially when you're doing long sessions in the studio, that kind of thing becomes very important. And secondly, because it saves a lot of space. You can see that if I had like a normal mouse, because of the fader port here, I would need to have the mouse pad kind of extended out here. Whereas this, I can put it right there next to my keyboard, which means my arms don't need to be extended out too far. Then I have this custom keyboard that I've made. And again, this comes into my obsession with tactility. I wanted to be able to customize the way the keys feel and the way they sound. So this is actually a gasket mounted keyboard. You can see it has a little bit of spring to it, which just softens the keys a little bit, makes it sound nicer, makes it feel nicer. Something that's really important for me in my workflow is trying to make sure that I feel as connected as possible to the music I'm making. And so I've looked for any possible ways to make the process of creating music on a computer as tactile and as nice feeling as I possibly can make it. So that's my studio. If you guys want to see how I built this custom studio desk, I'm going to leave a link to that video down in the description. I've also been doing some really crazy music production challenges lately. Last two were drum and bass, so if you want to check those out, I'll put the links down there too. And if you want to see more videos like this, make sure you hit like and subscribe and the bell icon to make sure you get those notifications. See you in the next video.